Hello and welcome to Managing the Student Experience inside Zoom. As you can see here, I've got my Zoom session open, but currently I'm the only one that's admitted to this meeting. So what I want to do is I'm going to use my phone in a separate Zoom account so we can admit a test student, so we can go over some of the ways that we're going to be able to manage that student's experience inside of this meeting. Alright, so we've got our student that is currently in the waiting room. Now if we remember from a previous video that by default Enable Waiting Rooms is turned on. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my participants window. As you can see down here, we've got the options for this test student in the waiting room. If we hover over their name, we can choose to admit them, we can remove them from this meeting, or we can send them a message. And sending them a message will communicate to everyone in that waiting room before they're actually admitted into the room. So now what we can do, if we hover over our test student, let's admit them into the room. So what I want to do is I want to switch my view to the gallery view. Now you can see both of our frames side by side. So now that we have our test student in the room with us, what can we do to help manage their experience? Well, one thing that we can do in this participants window, or what we call the Managing Participants Experience window, is we can go ahead and hover over our test student, and we're actually given some options. We can unmute or mute our student here. We can click on to more and we can look and see if we can send a direct chat to the student. We're also given the options to ask the student to start their video. We can make the student a host or a co-host. We can rename that student inside of our Zoom session, or we can even put the student back in the waiting room. If the student's being highly disruptive or they're not meant to be in that meeting, we can remove the student out of the meeting or even report them to Zoom. Down here at the bottom, we have our yes, no buttons. The students can raise hands here. This again, so we can communicate without having to unmute the students in the room. So at the bottom here, we have the ability to mute all of our students, or we can unmute them all. We can also, on these three dots here, if we open this up, we get another drop down menu with more settings. Here we have the option to control participants upon entry, making sure that their mics have been muted. We can allow participants to unmute themselves through the course of a meeting or disallow that. We can allow the participants to rename themselves. We can play an enter or exit chime when someone leaves or enters the meeting. We can enable a waiting room here, or we can lock the waiting room. And remember, now that we have our security button, we can see that some of these options are located in more than one space in Zoom. So for this, allow participants to rename themselves, enabling a waiting room, or locking a meeting, we can also find these over here in our security tool. Now, what we can also do, besides just coming over to our participants window to get to some of these settings over the student's name, we can actually already go to where the student's image is located. This is their feed, and if we click these three dots here as well, we'll get these same features. See, we can unmute audio, ask to start video, chat, rename. We can make them a host or co-host, remove or report, put back into the waiting room, or hide non-video participants. Now, another thing that we can do to manage the student experience is here in the chat window. In here, we're given another three dots indicating another settings menu. On this settings menu, we can control who the participants have access to use the chat feature with. As you can see, we can close it completely. We can have the access be to no one, so they won't be able to message anybody. We can make access to message the host only. We can make everyone be able to chat with everyone, but only publicly. Or we can have what I have selected here, which is everyone can chat both publicly and privately. Now, one of the benefits of leaving the chat open like this is that you can create a back channel between you and your students. Meaning, if a student needs to ask you a question, they can write to you, the host, directly and privately, meaning no one will know that the question has been asked. This opens up an anonymous question feed in which people will be able to ask questions without that worry of people judging or thinking too much about the question being asked. So next, there's just one last thing that we want to cover here today, and that's going to be the settings for your share screen. As you can see, there's a small caret indicating that there's a settings menu here, and this is going to give us the settings to control the experience when sharing screens. So as you can see, we've got two settings here, but if we go ahead and click the advanced sharing options, we'll get those same two settings plus a few more. So right now we have one participant can share at a time. What this means is that only one person can share their screen at a given time. And under the who can share, I only have the host as being able to share. Now if we want multiple participants to be sharing simultaneously, we can do so by selecting here. And as you can see, these last two options have been disabled, as you only need them when you only can share one at a time. Now if I switch this only host to all participants, it gives me my final option, which is who can start sharing when someone else is sharing, which is kind of like an interruption or a takeover. And again, the default is only host, but we can switch that to all participants as well. We do advise that if you plan on letting your students or your participants sharing their screens, that you wait for the moment that you need them to have that access in order to give it to them. So you'd come over here, give them the access, and when you're finished, we'd be finished with that as well. And that's everything for managing participant experience. So thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.